Today is Thursday, October 12th, 2023, and we're interviewing Jeanette Evans Dee. Hey, Mom.
Hi, Sharon.
How old are you today?
I'm 92 years old.
And can you tell me about your childhood?
I grew up on a farm. We didn't have much money, but we had lots of love. I have did have two brothers and a sister. Lost one sister before I was ever born.
And what was her name?
Her name was Dorothy Jean.
And how did she pass away?
She died of childhood something, baby disease. And then my parents had me and the two boys, and then they had Mary Lou, my sister.
And do you feel like she was the favorite?
I feel like Mary Lou was the favorite. Yep, I do.
What about, was there a favorite of the boys?
I don't think so.
Do you think Granddad had
Jerry was the favorite of all four of us.
Do you think Granddad had a favorite of you four,
No,
child?
I don't.
Or Grandma?
I don't.
You just thought, like my siblings think of me, because Aunt Mary Lou got the last years of their child raising, when things are better and different. Do you have a favorite childhood memory?
Oh, going out in the barn and swinging on the rope swing that my dad had. It was just a long rope that he put in the barn, and riding the pony and just going out and help Mom in the garden. And I had a really good, we only lived a mile from town, so I got to do all the activities that the rest of the kids got to do.
And what town did you live a mile from?
Minnetonka, Nebraska.
And you went to school there all the way through and graduated from Minnetonka High School in what year?
1949.
And then tell me about your high school. Tell me about what you were like.
I was in every activity that I could be in. I was in the pep club and tried out for cheerleading and didn't make it. So they made me drum major, and I loved that. I got to lead the band, going back and forth, and Timer also was in the band, so that was fun.
So you were in the band together with your brother?
Yeah.
And did all of them graduate from Minnetonka High as well?
No, just the two boys and me. Mary Lou graduated from Alliance, Nebraska.
I remember in 1968, the year I graduated. I think so. She said, okay. I mean, the year I graduated. Whoa, the year I was born. Yeah. Do you think as a kid was one of your siblings more of a risk taker or a rule breaker than others?
Yes, Jerry.
And did he get away with things?
Yes, he did, because he had polio. And we could see him down on the floor, and he would just crawl over and wouldn't play with his trucks, and then he couldn't get up. And so Mom took him to the doctor, and he walked just a short distance and said it's polio. So they farmed us out to other aunts, and Mom and Daddy just took care of him. And he got so he'd hear somebody drive in the driveway, and he'd say, "Who is it and what'd they bring me?"
Boy, have I heard that before. Were you a risk taker or a rule breaker?
I don't think I was much, maybe a little bit, but...
What do you think you got away with? Do you feel like you got away with something from Grandma that she doesn't know you did?
No, I don't think so.
You were a good girl.
I pretty well told her everything, and more times than once she would come pounding up those stairs, and I would already be in bed.
And she thought she was going to catch you.
Yeah, she thought so.
That has happened to me too. So now you have graduated high school. It's the summer of 1949. Now what?
I went out and got a job because I couldn't go to college then the next year. Daddy didn't have the money. So I worked for an architect and in a typewriter store and at the bakery, hometown bakery in Minnetonka. And then in 1950, Mom came and she said, "If you want to go to college, the scholarship is still good." So she said, "Somehow we will help you go to college." And I did at Chadron, Nebraska.
And you went 4 years?
Just two years.
And you graduated with a
Just
like a certificate, teacher certificate.
Certificate of teaching. I don't remember the exact words.
And then where did you go? What happened after that?
Then on the July 4th, 1952, I met a handsome young man, and we fell in love, and we got married then in December of 1952.
How did you meet him?
Blind. He was a blind date, and I was just his best friend introduced us, and I knew the girl from college, and so they said, let's get them together. And so,
and I've heard you say Dad went home and told Grandma that he met the woman he was going to marry.
Yep.
And did you know right away too, or did you?
Pretty much. I just wished in my heart, but he hadn't told me that he loved me. But I know the first time he kissed me, I just...
You saw stars?
Yeah, I did.
In Alliance, Nebraska?
Yes.
By the Central Park fountain?
And one night he kissed me goodbye and he said, I wish you were taller. So the next night I wore high heels. He said, well, I didn't mean for you to do that.
What was so attractive about him other than his devilish good looks?
Tall, dark, and handsome, and he had a wonderful, sweet personality, and we just clicked on and agreed on several things, and so
that was just it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so you met him in July and you married him in December, and then what did you do?
We moved to, he was in the Air Force, so we moved to Wichita Falls, Texas. He was already in Wichita Falls, and after the wedding then I came down to Wichita Falls, and we lived there for a while, and then we moved to Waco, Texas, where Jana, our oldest, and Stephen, our oldest son, were born.
On what used to be the Air Force Base?
Yes, but James Conley Air Force Base.
And Jana was born in 54?
I think so.
And Steve was born in 55.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember what it felt like thinking you might be pregnant for the very first time with Jana?
Oh yes, I was thrilled to pieces. And he came home and I said, I think I'm pregnant. He said, no.
What made you think it? Were you just
woman's intuition? Yeah.
And then when you found out you really were, what did he say?
He said, oh, okay. We'll take care of it.
Oh. And then May 25th, 1954, Jana Louise Dee was born.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember giving birth to her?
Oh, yes. I remember. I thought, I wonder what this is going to be like. And it was hurting, but not really bad. And all of a sudden they said, you have a baby girl.
Oh.
So...
And she came out beautiful and pink and shiny, and you loved her.
And she just weighed 5 pounds and 14 ounces.
Goodness, she was a little baby.
She was.
And so then when she wasn't but a little over a year old, then you found out what?
I was pregnant with Steve, and we were a little unhappy, but not so happy that we decided we were happy. And Fred wanted a boy. And he came up to the hospital, and I said, well, you got your boy. And he said, no, they told me it was a girl. And I said, no, it's a boy.
And he decided the name Stephen?
Yeah, we decided
Dennis?
together, Stephen Dennis.
And then you came home, and now you have 2 kids under 2, pretty much.
Yeah.
Or close around there. And you were still living on an Air Force base?
No, we moved. Yeah, we had moved to San Antonio for a short time, and then they sent him to France. So I moved back to Alliance with Jana and Steve and worked, and Aunt Mary Lou kept the Jana and Steve.
Tell that funny story about Jana walking on the street that Aunt Mary Lou likes to tell.
She would see nuns, and she'd look and say, hi, lately, hi, lately, hi, lately.
So cute. So what happened after Steve and Jana?
Then we moved to San Antonio and were there just 6 weeks when they shipped Fred to France, and we were going to be brave. I was going to stay home for 18 months, and then he would come and get me. But after about 6 weeks, he sent me a telegram. It put in for passports for you and the kids. And I went then that November because it was Steve's birthday, and I was traveling with a year-old baby and a toddler, but I had a leash for her. I didn't believe in leashes, but I thought going through all these airports and train stations, everything, because she was a runner, she would just go out and
maybe Jana's a little like Abigail, huh?
Probably
a
could
little
be.
wild. Okay, so now you and the kids, you and Steve and Jana have gone to what town in France?
Châteauroux, the old.
To another Air Force base,
Yes,
to Air Force housing.
Yeah. Well, we lived out on what they call the economy.
Yeah.
In a wonderful. The French people were absolutely fantastic with us. She would come over and she'd say, "Du thé, meaning did I want a cup of coffee with her. And one day she came over and she said, "Goodbye, Stephen. Goodbye, Jenna." Only English I ever heard her say.
Oh.
But she was we gave her Tide. A big box of Tide was what she paid for just a little one.
Oh, wow.
And he worked in the garden, and your dad worked in the garden. Your dad really enjoyed that, working in the garden. And they would go down and have an aperitif before dinner.
That's so fun. Why did you, and then Lynette was born there, right?
Yes, she was.
Do you remember finding out you were pregnant with her?
No, not really, I don't. I think I was a little upset because we only planned on 2.
Well.
Uh-oh.
So Lynette comes out. She's Lynette. She's a girl.
Yeah.
Now what?
And she weighed 7 pounds, 3 ounces. She was, and we were happy. We lived in the base housing then and made lots of good friends. And then they shipped us from there to Tacoma, Washington. And so we traveled clear from New York to New York with 3 kids, and our luggage was strapped to the top of the car. And as it dirty clothes, they would get in the car. And the first kid to go to sleep got the best place to sleep.
Heck yeah. And that was on the Volkswagen?
Yes,
From where to where?
From New York to Tacoma, Washington.
My goodness, that's all
With
the
a
way
stop in Nebraska to see our parents. And
wow, that's a long journey.
Yes,
and
it was.
Lynette was car sick.
yes, all the way from Washington to riding into Grandpa's driveway.
Yuck. So, and Dad was stationed where after France?
I can't think of the name. Tacoma Air Force Base, but I can't think of the name of that base.
McCord.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, Dad was stationed at McCord, and you lived there for roughly how long, do you think?
Oh, let's see. Probably, I don't know, not very long, not long enough, because we bought a house and he loved doing the garden, and I just can't remember.
And then, so it would have been, the twins were born in 1960, so you would have been in there 58, 59.
Yeah.
Did you get pregnant at that house and have the twins at that house?
Yes.
So now you have 5 kids.
Yeah.
You didn't know you were having twins until
No, I didn't.
Until they came out and they said there's another one.
Yeah.
And they were born how much premature?
Like almost 3 months. One of them weighed 312 and the other one weighed 314.
And their names were?
Marvin Dale and Melvin Jean.
And now the Dee family is 7.
Yep.
And what you have to leave Tacoma
Because Grandpa got sick and we had to leave the Air Force and go to take care of the farm for Grandpa. So we did, and both of us were unhappy about that. We just didn't want to do that,
but Dad felt it was an obligation.
Yeah, he said it's an obligation, so.
And there you stayed for how many years?
Gee. What year did we move to Sterling?
80-ish.
Yeah.
So the twins were born in 60, and then you moved to Nebraska in...
They were like 9 months old and they weren't even sitting up yet.
61.
Dad put a piece of board across so the kids could all move back and forth and not have to stand up and sit down.
Oh. And you lived on Lily's place that...
Yeah, we lived on the Grandpa Dee's farm for a while. And then we lived on Lily Curry's place. And then we moved back to the farm. And then we moved to Sterling, Colorado when he...
No. We left the farm in like 79 or 80 and we moved to Alliance because Dad started working at the railroad. Yeah. And then we were just there 1 year and then we moved to Sterling.
And that was great because then we had a nickel to spend. And before that we had to just scrimp and save every penny we could.
So you both were so happy to leave the farm and that Dad got the railroad job. And
we went out every Saturday night and had date night.
Just you never had done that in the whole six kids of...
No.
Okay, wait, so we have to go back to Lily Curry's place, fall of 1967. What were you doing?
Wouldn't you like to know?
I do know because I happened to have been conceived around that time. And what did you think when you found out you were pregnant with me?
I was very unhappy because we had too many kids and we only wanted 2, and I knew that money was tight, but when you were born I just fell in love with you immediately.
And Dad wasn't able to be in the room with any of the of the babies, and so then he just would come in and it'd be a surprise what the gender was.
Yeah. And the night the twins were born, he came up to see me, and I wasn't in my room, and my roommate wasn't in her bed, so he went down to the nurse's station, and he said, "What have you done with my wife?" And they said, "She's down delivering twins." And I kept saying, "Call my husband, call my husband, call my husband," because I wanted him there. But
and when they said you were delivering, he probably thought, "No, it's way too early."
Yeah, that's what I thought when the nurse told me. She said, "Come on, you're going to deliver." And I said, "Well..."
But you don't remember or know what caused you to go into such early labor with them?
I was they had me on bed rest in the hospital. Because when the doctor found out it was twins, he said, "You have to go to the hospital right now." And I said, "I can't. I've got to go home and tell my husband I've got kids at home he has to make arrangements for." So, and he wasn't supposed to do it, but he would bring him out in the car, make him sit down on the floorboards so nobody could see him.
And do what? Why did he?
Just so they couldn't see the Air Force cops couldn't see him.
Oh, I see. Okay, so July of 1968, I was born, and I've heard all my siblings talk about that day. What do you remember about the day you brought me home?
Oh, the kids were so happy, and I said, "Don't touch this baby, don't touch this baby." And like I say, I just fell in love with you the minute I saw you. And your name is Sharon D. Iverson.
Sharon Lee D.
Sharon Lee D. Iverson. And you weighed 5 pounds and 15 ounces.
Yeah, I was a little bitty kid too. And then sometime after we left Lily's place and we moved back to Grandpa's farm.
And then Dad got the job with the railroad. And he drove back and forth for a while. Him and Steve drove together for a while. And then we moved to... How did we move to Sterling? We moved to Sterling then.
For 2 years.
And lived there 2 years. And then we moved back to the farm for a short time.
Wait. No.
No.
We left Alliance we left Hemingford after 6th grade. I did 7th grade in Alliance. Then I did 8th and 9th in Sterling. And Sterling is where Marvin died in July of 81. And then we moved back to Alliance for my 10th, 11th, and 12th. So like 82, 83 or so.
We lived a house at 1243 Toluca.
Yes, we did. It was an old converted, well, not really converted, but it was an old church. Yeah. So now all your kids have grown up and gone, and you and Dad are empty nesters, and then he gets transferred to Douglas?
Yes.
From the railroad, and you didn't want to go.
No, I was happy in Sterling, but then we went back to Douglas, and I have made some of the dearest friends ever in Douglas, Wyoming.
Yeah, you have.
They are true, wonderful friends. Deb Conklin, you know who you are.
Yeah, you had some beautiful hollyhocks, and
Yes.
we had great memories there. So what year did, so you lived in Douglas for like 20 years or
some time,
or
yeah.
so, and
We moved there in 1980.
90. I graduated in 86.
Oh, yeah, okay, 1990. And so we lived there.
Yeah, a really long time.
Yeah.
And then both of your health just wasn't really good, and the doctors decided that you needed a different climate.
Yeah.
And Dad said, "We're moving to." Where did Dad bring you? To West Texas.
West Texas.
West, Texas.
Yeah.
Because Steve and his wife Sandra live here, and he bought a farm on 40 some acres.
Yeah.
And that was what year? I can't remember. This is 2023, 2013, 2014.
Probably 2014. In that area, 2013 or 14. But when I talked to the lady inside the house, Dad was out talking to her brother, and she said, "Will you do me a favor, and will you please put up an American flag in your front yard?" And I said, "Absolutely." And she said, "My daddy always wanted a flag." And so I said, we shall. And him and Steve got us. I had to kind of get upset, tell him it was time for a new flag.
You guys went through a flag a year or so.
Yeah,
those Texas
but
winds.
the last flag he got lasted for quite some time.
Good. And Dad sure loved that farm.
Yes, he did.
I'm sure he wishes he could have been more productive on it.
Yeah,
but
he sat and said, I wish I could be out on the tractor. And then him and Steve would work on tractors or lawnmowers or whatever. And they grew very, very close.
They did. They were just best friends and two peas in a pod, if ever anybody fit that phrase.
And the last 2 years of his life, he wasn't well.
No, he really wasn't. We're not going to talk about the day we lost him because that's just too much.
Yeah.
So overall, do you think, could you define 3 of your best days of your life?
One was marrying Fred Dee.
And the other one would be giving birth to his 6 children.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so is there a third?
No, that's just the 69 years I spent with him.
Are you scared of dying?
No. I have wondered, because the way he went, that's how I hope I go. I don't think he was in any pain. He'd been in pain for a couple of years, so it was.
And you know you're going to heaven.
I certainly have that feeling that I shall. And I will see my mother and my dad The 3 kids I put in heaven. I didn't put them there, but
No.
that's where they are.
Because we lost Melvin in September of 2012 or 2013.
Yeah.
And then we lost Lynette just 4 months after losing Dad. When people say God doesn't give you more than you can handle,
That made me wonder, because I kept saying, God doesn't give me more than I can handle. Please, God, give me strength.
and He did, because
Oh,
here you
he-
are, 92
he-
and 3/4.
Yeah. And living in a wonderful place that's good and friendly and
Yeah. She lives in a place called Wesley House in Hillsboro, Texas. And she's surrounded by all the pictures of all the people she loves. And she told me recently the only place she didn't get to go that she wishes she could have gone was Switzerland. Any reason why?
I've always just wanted to go. I read stories. I read Heidi when I was young, and I just always...
Sound of Music.
Yeah. So, and the cardinal curtain that you can see in this photo is what the last gift Lynette sent me.
Yeah. Lynette was real good to you guys. Do you think, is there anything else that how do you want to be remembered?
As a loving mother and grandmother, great-grandmother, and great-great-grandmother.
And so you have 3 surviving children, and how many grandkids?
I don't know.
I think you have 6.
Six.
Jana had 2, Steve had 2, Lynette had 2, Sharon had 2. You have 8.
Yeah, 8 grandchildren. I don't know how many.
And then Roxy has 2, Nick has 3, Katie has 2, Kelly has 2. I don't know if that counted Roxy. Yeah, I did. I counted her first. 9 or 10 great grandchildren, and then she just recently became a great great grandma to Clara Belle Brown, daughter of Tyler Brown, son of Roxy Brown. Is there anything else that you would like us to know or remember about you?
I just hope people remember as a loving mother, and there were times I know when I wasn't a loving mother.
Well, I think you're human.
Yeah.
You're human.
But on a whole, I've had a good life. Thanks be to God.
Absolutely.
I spent lots of night praying and praying and praying.
Without faith.
Yeah. For strength to get through.
I love you, Mom.
I love you, sure.